Good morning, folks. We're going to take a look at the scripture for December 11th, which is the third Sunday of Advent. And you may recall from during the Advent season, the primary religious characters we encounter, first of all, Isaiah, and also John the Baptist, and then, of course, the 8th of December being the Feast of the Immaculate Conception, also Mary would be one of those primary religious characters we meet during Advent also. Anyway, so we'll just take a look at the reading for Sunday. And, last week, John the Baptist, we encountered John the Baptist in the desert of Judea, and we're told that he was like a powerful preacher. He was really very direct, very much in people's faces in terms of telling them what they need to do, and that if they don't do it, that they're certainly heading in the wrong direction. As he says himself, the axe is laid to the root of the tree. The tree, if the tree doesn't produce fruit, then it's be cut down and thrown into the fire. So his message was a pretty harsh and direct message. So we sort of take that up this weekend also, where you find we encountered John again, but in this instance we find that John is in prison, and the reason he's in prison is because he attacked, not physically but verbally, he attacked Herod and told him that it was unlawful for him to be living with his brother's wife, and so that those words, that attack, if you will, that's what landed him in prison. And obviously, those prisons back then, like prisons today, perhaps a lot worse than prisons today. They were just dungeons, and so obviously poor John had to be in a pretty miserable state in the prison. But somehow, in the midst of his loneliness in prison, he heard about Jesus. Jesus, of course, was perhaps almost one of his contemporaries. So he heard that Jesus and his preaching was going ahead, and he wanted to know about who Jesus was. He knew that the Messiah was coming, but the question was Jesus really the Messiah? And of course, I think for the first thing that this would concern him was that, like, the method Jesus was using seemed to be so far removed from the method that John was using. That is, as I say, John was very direct in people's faces, whereas the message of Jesus seemed to be a lot more laid back, and we're told that he was sort of hanging out with prostitutes and sinners and so on. So John was really confused, I suppose, and so he sends messengers to Jesus to ask, Are you the one who is to come? Meaning, are you truly the Messiah, or are we to expect somebody else? And so Jesus says to the messengers, he says, go back to John and tell him what you've seen and what you've heard. The blind see, the deaf hear, the lame walk again, and the poor have the good news preached to them. And in many ways, what he is doing, what Jesus is doing in his response to John the Baptist, if not directly, almost directly, he's quoting from Isaiah 35, which was the first reading of today's Mass, where in Isaiah it says, and it was talking about in Isaiah, really, it was talking about to the people of his time. It was a message, again, like a message of salvation. People in the time of Isaiah were in exile. They were in Babylon in exile, and they were miserable in exile, and they were hoping and praying that somewhere along the line they'll be able to go home. And the message of Isaiah was the fact that somehow God was intervening in their lives, and they're going to be allowed to go home. And in going home, he says the following. He says, then will the eyes of the blind be opened, and the ears of the deaf be cleared. Then will the lame leap like a stag. Then the tongue of the mute will sing. So it was, in a sense, like it was a new beginning for the people of Israel, just as the coming of of the Messiah was going to be a new beginning as far as the Israelites were concerned at a much later time. So in other words, obviously, John got a satisfactory answer to his question, but also, even though this is not stated directly, but I'm sure John was also not just concerned about whether or not Jesus was the Messiah. He was probably also concerned about his own situation, the fact that he was miserable in this horrible dungeon, and wondering what was going to happen to him, and whether or not the Messiah was about to help him. So I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer to that question, but I mean, it was a good question for John the Baptist at the time, a good consideration. But in a sense, as we ponder the plight of John in that situation, I think it's also, during Advent we're again waiting for the return of the Messiah into our lives, and like John, we're not in sort of a physical prison, but so many of us, so many families, so many individuals, so many nations are really struggling, bogged down with a variety of different challenges, and of course, as we sort of encounter those challenges, the question is, to what extent can the Messiah come not just come again, but come again into our situation and help to remedy our situation and make our lives better. So we hope anyhow that the coming of the Messiah at Christmas this year will truly be a blessing for all of us. So thank you.